If you're comfortable, we would love to see your face as we are showing our faces. So please, if you are feeling comfortable, turn your camera on, and we will get started in just a couple minutes. I want to make sure we get everybody in the room. Nicole, how are we doing with everyone coming in?
We're good. We've got about 23 people here. Hi, everyone. Maybe give another minute, Melissa.
Okay, we'll wait a couple more minutes. Oh, look at all those gorgeous, gorgeous faces. This is great. This is going to be a wonderful, wonderful, and perfectly timed event too, because I'm already starting to feel, and I'm not even cooking this year, but I'm starting to feel the holidays coming and the stuff that comes along with it, and all the gift giving and all the kind of stressy emotional stuff attached to the holidays is sort of just starting to brew. So I'm really glad we're doing this now. Before, oh, look, someone else's dog is peeking up too. It's not just
Oh, that's
Chicago.
Allison.
Oh, look at all
Yes,
the
this is
dogs.
Hazel.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Say hi, Chicago. Say hi to all your friends.
Good to see Allison. I think the last call, we had a call earlier this week on Monday, and I think Allison couldn't walk her dog, but it's good to see your dog here.
Yes. Actually, I took 10 minutes to walk her. That's all she got.
Today too?
No, today she got a nice one, and yesterday she got a nice one.
Oh, good.
Thank you.
All righty. I think, how are you feeling, Nicole? Shall we?
Yeah, let's start.
Great. Hi, everybody. I am so happy that you're all here. As I was saying before, I love the timing of this event because I'm starting to feel the pressure from the holidays coming, and all the stuff that's sort of attached to it. For me, there's so much and so many memories and so much good stuff and difficult stuff. Also, I always kind of gear up for the holidays because my father's birthday is December 27th. And if you know my story, you know that I lost my father when I was 11, but I didn't find out the circumstances of his death until I was 45. I didn't find out that he had died by suicide until then. So it's sort of like he died twice for me. So his birthday carries a lot of weight, and it's 2 days after Christmas. So I kind of like, I used to put a lot of pressure on Christmas having to be great to get me through his birthday. Not so much anymore, but there's just a lot of stuff, and I think everybody has it. So I'm really, really excited that we get to walk through some of this with Sandy, who I'm going to let her tell her story, has not only survived, but thrived in the post, I guess, life existence of having to walk through the most unimaginable grief that anyone can walk through, the loss of a child. And she's the most shiny, sparkly, grounded, spiritual, grateful, wonderful human being. And I'm so blessed that she's my best friend. And I'm just so excited that you all guys all get to spend time with her, walking through some of this stuff and talking through all of this stuff. So I'm going to shut up now, and I'm going to turn it over to Sandy Peckinpah, my best friend. And we're going to talk about hope for the holidays and how to get through them. Sandy, it's all yours.
Oh, thank you, Melissa. And you are my best friend in life. I am so lucky. And how many years has it been? It's been like 30.
Well, yeah, because Julianne and Dakota are 32.
Yes.
And I'm 33. So it's been 30 years.
Yeah. Amazing. Well, we are so blessed. And one of the things that Melissa said is when about the anniversaries and the holidays being difficult. Yes, they are difficult. And yet it's supposed to be the most magical time of the year. And we all struggle with it. Some of us are grieving, and others are going through life challenges. And some of us are struggling financially or emotionally. And this modern prairie discussion is going to be about navigating the holidays with joy while setting boundaries and expectations and providing a framework for jumpstarting your holidays. And so we're going to be offering some tips and tools. I'll be doing lots of lists. So this is not a listening webinar. This is a doing webinar. And so if you have a chance to grab a paper and pencil, and one of the things that I hope you will do is start thinking of these things that we're talking about in your own situation. And I'll be giving you ways to do that so that you can do these long after the webinar is over. And I have a little surprise for you at the end that was hopefully emailed to you if you signed up with an email. So there's no denying that loss is hard. And especially during the holidays, because it's a time when we expect, as Melissa said, we expect to be merry and joyful, and sometimes we overcompensate, but sometimes we just don't feel that way. And experiencing loss, all of us have had seasons of loss in our lives, and quite possibly you had some of the hardest losses ever this year or last year. And I know some of you mentioned that when you signed up for this, and my heart goes out to you because I've experienced loss, and yes, it came just 6 days before Christmas. That was many years ago. And I can tell you as the holiday season begins that I still struggle with it in a variety of ways. So I'm just like you. I've gone through good times and bad times, and somehow I'm still here. So my story, if you didn't hear it the first time we talked, when was that? I think it was August. Sadly, my son, who was 16 years old, woke up with a fever, and just 24 hours later, I lost him. The doctor had diagnosed it as the flu, type A flu, and what it turned out to be was bacterial meningitis, and it was very aggressive. And the doctor said, take him home, give him soup, give him Tylenol and Advil, and he'll be fine in the morning. No, he wasn't fine. Unfortunately, he died in the middle of the night, and it was the greatest tragedy of our family's lives. And so one thing that I wondered at the time that it happened, because I still had 3 living children, is how in the heck am I going to handle Christmas? Because I had 3 younger children, and they still wanted the magic. They wanted a whole mommy. They wanted to be able to feel the joy. And yet our family had experienced this horrible, horrible tragedy. And so it's often what I write about and in my books and blogs. And I'm also certified as a grief recovery specialist with the Grief Recovery Institute in Los Angeles. It was something that I wanted to do because I felt like I didn't have the whole story. I wanted to know more. I wanted to know more to be able to help other people through this time of loss, which whether it's a child or a beloved father or mother or a sibling or a best friend or a pet, all of those losses we feel 100% in our lives. And there's no denying it's probably the hardest thing you'll ever go through. So when I started thinking about Modern Prairie and how we're of the age and the time that we've lived a lot of life. And by now, all of us have experienced a significant loss. But it's Thanksgiving coming up, and it's Hanukkah, and it's Christmas, and it's New Year's, and all the other holidays that we celebrate. How do you deal with this? Well, I'll tell you, at first, I had what's called foreboding joy. And I love Brene Brown. I don't know if you've read her writings, but Brene Brown refers to foreboding joy as the feeling of being happy or wanting to be happy, but feeling like something's going to happen if we're too happy. And I know we've all sort of felt like that at one time or another. And it makes you feel very vulnerable because joy is vulnerable. It's an emotion that we experience. And if you can't tolerate joy, then it's really hard to start feeling any other emotions because you keep stuffing them down. And what I was tending to do was dress rehearsing the tragedy. And so I was afraid to feel that joy, and especially during the approaching Christmases. And I wondered, could I ever be happy again? Could I ever celebrate Christmas again? So if you have those feelings of sadness, it's something that we've all experienced. And what are the things that we might be feeling that might trigger us as the holidays approach? Loneliness. There's a feeling of loneliness with grief that I'm not sure that anything, person, circumstance can really alleviate it. And once it happens to you, you know that empty, hollow feeling. It's that deep loneliness that comes when something just doesn't feel right. And it could be a deep longing for someone who is past, or feelings of inadequacy, or wishing things were different in your life. You may be going through a life transition now, and it's looking back on your life and feeling melancholy. And maybe that the past was much more fun and you wish that times could happen again. And that's a very real part of mourning and going through the grief recovery process, is that you feel that sense of, if only I had. And those if only sometimes can really upset the way you're feeling and can trigger feelings of loneliness. But it doesn't mean that you won't have good times, because you can create those, I promise you. And the best thing to do with loneliness is to acknowledge it, because once you're aware of it, you're not unaware. And that awareness gives you the encouragement to maybe shift it, to do what's called a pattern interrupt in psychology, by doing something to change the emotion. Because it's much easier to stay in loneliness, believe me. And it's much easier to just sit with, watching television, or eating by yourself, or not going out of the house for days. But and believe me, I wanted to do all of those things, but I discovered, in fact, there's an inspirational speaker, Mel Robbins, on Instagram that I found. And she said, there's a 5-second rule that if you do a countdown, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, you can jumpstart that feeling of not wanting to do anything. And I have to tell you, I don't just use this for loneliness or grieving. I use this for going to the gym. I use it for paying bills. I do it for cleaning house, or anything that I don't want to do. I give myself a countdown, and I know 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and I know it's time to put on my shoes to go to the gym. And just taking that step and just implementing that little tool is really helpful. I promise you, it works. And so I want to get back to this feeling of loneliness, because loneliness requires that you make the first move, because no one else is going to make you feel not lonely. And believe me, I know it's hard, but you can't wait for someone to show up or someone to save you, because you're the strong woman who can implement the 5-second rule or make that phone call, because you're the director of this. You're the director of how your life is going. And so things that you can do with loneliness, I've made this list for you of options that you have. You could invite someone over to make cookies with you. And that's personally my favorite thing, because everyone loves cookies. And if you invite someone over to make cookies, you get to eat the cookie dough, which is my other favorite thing in the world. So isn't that true, Melissa?
Yes, 100%. And the reason I know this is because it's my favorite thing to do.
Yeah.
I love cookie dough.
I love it. I love it. In fact, I like the cookie dough better than the actual cookie. It's true. So that's my number one, is when I'm feeling lonely or just funky and just feel like I don't want to go anywhere, I invite somebody over, and that leaves me not having to get in the car and go anywhere, but it works, and you get to eat the cookie dough. And number two, and Melissa, you did this, and I still get, I don't even know how to say this without crying, because after Garrett died, it was 6 days to Christmas. And I called Melissa and I said, Melissa, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know what to do. I've got all of these presents for the kids, but how do I find joy? What do I do? She said, I'll be right there. And Melissa showed up with wrapping paper and tape and ribbons. And she said, we're going to wrap presents. And that was probably the greatest gift I had before Christmas, being able to wrap Christmas presents for my kids and be able to tell stories. And the two of us talked, and she let me talk about Garrett, and she let me cry about Garrett. And to this day, it remains probably one of the highlights of my life, because I know I wasn't alone. She took that loneliness away, and she gave me my best friend sitting with me. So thank you, Mrs. B. Number 3, that was a special time. Number 3, do a bigger project. So if you start a project during Christmas, I have a friend that she every year used to do a presentation of A Christmas Memory by Truman Capote. And I don't know if you're familiar with this book, because it's unusual for Truman Capote that he wrote this wonderful children's magical tale about his life growing up. And he was so excited about Christmas every year because he and his aunt would make fruitcakes, and they would send them all over the world to people who were remarkable to them. And he sent them to the president and to the queen and to all sorts of people. He would make fruitcake and send them to and close family members. But he describes his excitement as a child, and as he and his beloved aunt used to do this ritual every year. And it made the magic for him when he had actually a very poor childhood. And so my friend used to put on the reading of this book. I keep calling it a fairy tale, but it's actually a true story. And she would invite people over to have fruitcake and hot tea and sparkling cider and all kinds of fun, sweet treats. And she would choose 3 or 4 friends to read with her, and they would break the book down into different areas where each actor was going to read it. And it was just a lovely evening, but it took a lot of planning. And one of the things that I loved about it is for me to be able to participate in it, it was very focused on the joy. And so for me, it was a very special event. And if you have the motivation to create something that's a little bit more effort, consider doing a reading of your favorite fairy tale or Christmas tale. And his is called A Christmas Memory by Truman Capote. So number 4 is that, and I know a lot of people in this room have lost their life partner. And I know how hard that is in some ways. I've experienced it myself. And, it's not an easy thing, whether it's by divorce or death, change of circumstances. It's so difficult. And when you've lost a life partner, the hardest thing to do is to show up at events. And the best thing you can do is to enlist a friend. And, those friends don't have to be close friends. Sometimes other people are just waiting to be invited somewhere and would love to attend. And if you can find that person, and I even attended an event one time with a friend that I only knew from Facebook. And she called me actually, and she had just lost her husband. And she said, I would love to go to this event if you wouldn't mind going with me. And I was so thrilled. And it was a wonderful event, wine tasting, enjoying the evening. And I'm so glad that I did it. So think of those things, those people in your life and those events that you could invite somebody to, or that if you're invited, you could invite them and attend with you. It gives you that level of safety. The other is, you know what? I forgot to grab those beautiful cards. Oh no, I have them. Get a stack of holiday cards or even just regular cards and write something. Write a friend a card. It is the most intimate thing to get a card from a beloved friend or someone you just know. Sometimes the unexpected friend that just sends you a random card is so special. And Melissa has these beautiful cards that I love this one most of all. Can you see that?
Yeah.
And I've already used them. I've already sent them to friends and clients because it makes a difference. A handwritten note is amazing. It makes such a difference in someone's life. And I always feel so blessed when someone takes the time to do it. So I hope you get cards, get a stack of cards, and just start writing. Sometimes it's better to do it on a roll, to fix yourself a cup of tea and sit there with a stack of cards and just write to everybody you can think of. And I promise you, they're going to treasure that as much as they would a gift. So number 6 is volunteer to do something out of the ordinary. You know, sometimes volunteering seems so overwhelming, like we're going to get committed and overcommitted, and it's another stress to add. But I can promise you that there's an interaction and an exchange of volunteering that really is satisfying. After about 10 years after my son died, I went to the school where my kids were attending, and I said, you know, I'd like to help you with grief counseling because they have counselors that work with students who lose parents or siblings or grandparents. And both of my children went through grief counseling at their school. And I thought, you know, I'm qualified. I can do this. And you don't even have to have a certification to do it. They would take you through the program easily, and you show up for those kids. And I'm telling you, one of the most wonderful, heartwarming experiences was being able to work with those kids on their losses during the holidays. And to this day, I think it's probably one of the most memorable things I've done. And if you have that opportunity to think of an unusual commitment of time for that, for me, it was an 8-week period. And so I felt comfortable committing. I could do 8 weeks. And for others, it may be just one day serving food at the food bank for people that are in need at Thanksgiving. Anything like that gives you that beautiful feedback in your soul that you're making a difference in people's lives.
I have one.
Please do.
To jump in with. That's actually a really, I've always believed, and Sandy, you and I have talked about this a bunch, that being of service it's so important to do for yourself because it gets you out of your own head and your own circumstances and focused on somebody else and helping. And then you get this immense sense of satisfaction after that you've actually done something great. My mom, and now I have a bunch of friends who do this. And now that we're sort of, God willing, past COVID, but with the testing and the vaccines, if you believe in them and the masking and all that, they're doing this again in hospitals across the country. You can register to go in and cuddle and feed newborns. I mean, already I'm smiling just talking about it. The idea of also being able to give them back, not have to take them home all night, but to snuggle and feed these new little people and be a part of the beginning of their journey. And I don't know about all of you, but I was with our youngest grandchild this morning holding her, and
Froze.
still make eggs. But everything in me just relaxed and got cozy, and I had this little person in my arms. So the idea of being able to go into a hospital and be a part of that, somebody I don't even know is just great. And it's needed everywhere, certainly. So if that's, I heard a lot of people go, oh, when I said it, and it just brings a smile to your face. It's a real joy. So there's that to do. I mean, it's something that's that simple as opposed to getting involved in someone's entire life or, depending upon what you're capable of doing. But oh my goodness. It's a big deal.
That's funny because that was my number 7. It's right on track because I got to take care of my grandson this weekend, and I had 3 whole days to him all by myself. And the most amazing feeling, because there is actually a chemical reaction to having a child in your arms. There's like serotonin and oxytocin and all of that. And then also to see the awe in their eyes. Everything is so exciting for them, and to be able to do that and to hold them. And I'm telling you, children are the best for rejuvenating whatever you need, just rejuvenating that pleasure and that feeling of joy in your life, and especially the awe. That's wonderful. But my sister-in-law, actually, she volunteers in the NICU for holding babies that are like Mikey. Yeah. And she loves it. She finally is able to go back and do that.
Yeah.
So anyway, that was my number 7. Number 8 is invite a few people over and teach them what they want to learn. And one of the best things you can do is, guess what? A pie crust, because everybody wants to know how to make a pie crust. And if you say, I don't know how to make pies, well, guess what? Melissa and Nicole and Modern Prairie are taking care of that. Do you want to talk about that, Melissa?
I will. It's so odd to talk about it with you because you are the pie crust queen, and I still can't. It's a thing. I have this mental block about pie crust. You've showed me. Cheryl, who is teaching our pie crust seminar, has showed me, and I can't. Someone Tina just just messaged Prairie Pumpkin Pie. The filling I can do, it's the crust. So we're actually having this really great, another one of these Zoom sessions, or 2, I should say, next Monday. On Monday. On Monday, and then the following Monday. The first Monday, we're going to learn how to make a crust together. And we're going to have the crusts ready. And then a week from Monday, we're going to fill those crusts. One of them's going to be pecan maple, and the other one's going to be a pumpkin. I've preferred it because it's my kids who are like in their 40s at this point, but still pumpkin custard pie with kind of a secret twist that I don't really know about. And the whole thing about that, we're all going to get to do it together, and there'll be a couple of fun surprise guests coming. We're calling them the Friends of Melissa, whom you will see if you join us. But for me, the great thing about it is we'll have 2 pies in the fridge before Thanksgiving. Hello. And we're going to have fun making them. So if you go to the events page on Modern Prairie, and this is interesting to you, come make crust and pie with us. And then we have other events coming up in December around cooking. We're going to do savory pies then, but this will give us a chance to be together, which Sandy is talking about is really important at this time of year anyway. Also, it's this community, which has become really, it's become a community. I mean, we kind of know each other. We know each other's faces. We see each other. So we'll get to do this together. It's going to be really fun. Cheryl, our pie expert, wrote a book called The Art of Pie. And I've made a couple of her pies. Oh my gosh, Sandy. Oh my gosh. The basil custard pie with strawberry. Oh my gosh. And the blueberry crumble pie with chamomile cream. I mean,
that would kill me. I would love that.
You just fall over and just in absolute ecstasy with every bite. It's the best. So she's teaching us all how to make these things. And then we're going to do savory pies. Sandy, we made a caramelized onion galette with ricotta that we made then and there. I made cheese with her, and it was like easy.
Oh my gosh, it sounds fabulous.
Oh, so fun. So if you want to join us and have some fun before the holidays and get a couple pies in your fridge, sign up. You'll see it on the events page at Modern Prairie, and we'd love to have you there. We have, I think Nicole said, roughly 20 people signed up so far. A lot of people are interested, and there's space for 50 people for each event. So just if you want to come. I'll be there covered in flour. Again, hopefully the pie crust thing will sink in with all of your help and support. I'm sure it will.
It will. Melissa, you're one of the best cooks. That you're so funny because you know how to cook.
I do. I think I just have this weird mental block about crust, but I'll get
Oh,
there. I'll get there.
yeah.
I'll get there with our community. I'm going to do
Yes.
it. I'm
You're
going to
gonna
do
get
it.
there. Okay. All right. So I want to transition a minute because, I want to mention, Danny had mentioned also, I saw in the chat about pets and how donate cans of dog food, pet food. I think it's so important. I know, Melissa, that's one of your loves too. So
Mhm.
I think if we can remember to do that.
We do have a message actually, and I know you're going to continue on with what
Mhm.
you have, Sandy, but Jonna Cooley has written to everybody that her grief is paralyzing and she can't even imagine doing any of these things at all. Maybe she's just not there yet. And Allison said baby steps. And I said baby steps. And sometimes it's just brushing your teeth.
Mhm. That's so true. Jonna, I'm so sorry for your loss. And I know, I believe you lost your wife of 24 years. And grief is paralyzing. And it is hard to imagine that you would be able to pick up and reach out and do and there's something inside of you that we all have, and it's called resilience. And whether you believe it or not, using little tools like we're giving you, just a pattern interrupt. If you can do one thing, like Melissa said, brushing your teeth, going to the grocery store, as I said, shifting 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, I'm going to put on my shoes and I'm going to go to the gym. And oddly enough, after my son died, I was at the gym in 3 days, 4 days maybe. Why? Because I needed the serotonin that you get from working out. I needed to feel like I was going to be physically exhausted and exhilarated physically to the point that I could go on with the rest of my day. And as strange as that sounds, it really worked to be able to just get myself to the gym. And believe me, it was the hardest thing I've ever done. I called a friend and she went with me. And that calling a friend thing is the best thing you can do, because sometimes you'll chicken out and you'll get small. Your life will get very small with grief. And that's the thing that you absolutely don't want to happen. You need to open up like a flower and reach out and expand your world, not stay in a tight bud. And so that's the next part of our conversation. We're going to be talking about the fact that most people have a history of big and little losses, and they harbor layers of grief within your body and your mind. You're feeling this physically as much as mentally. And that's why I'm saying I got up and you can take a walk in the neighborhood. The holidays actually are a breeding ground for those traumas to surface. And there's actually, as much as I would love to say there is a fix for grief, or there is one thing that I could tell you that would make you all better, the fact is grief is a long process. There is no time limit on it. Don't let people tell you that you should be over it by now. Don't let people tell you that grief is something that will pass with time. It's not time. It's what you do with that time that makes all the difference. And you have resilience inside of you, just like that little seed that gets dropped in a sidewalk and somehow it sprouts into this gorgeous little tree. That's miraculous. And that's what we have inside of us, is that little seed that says, yeah, I can do this. I can do this. And so don't lose hope. Don't feel that you're going to grieve forever. There's a certain amount of you that will, how do I explain this? You'll feel the sorrow, the loss, what could have been. You'll feel that forever. But you'll be able to remember your loved one without the excruciating pain. Does that make sense? It's like at first, every time I thought of Garrett, even as a baby, it would hurt so much. It was like the hole in your heart. And heartbreak is real. That's why they call it heartbreak, because you do feel it in your heart. You feel pain. But that whole, it changes and it shifts, and you fill it with other things that help you come to a level of being able to live with it, and the quality of your life will improve, but only if you take steps to shift. And so it's important, as you examine your life experiences, you'll see that each of those experiences has led you for the capability of being able to handle certain things. And you may think, no, there's no way I could handle the loss of a child or the loss of a spouse, but there are other times in your life where you've experienced loss. And if you can look at those and say, okay, I survived that. One of the things I survived, as odd as this sounds, is that I really thought that I'd had the worst thing that could happen when my daughter was born with a birth defect. She was born with a deformed face, and it was going to take a lot of surgeries to repair that little face. And I was feeling, what I didn't know at the time was grief in the loss of my hope for her as a child, going through life with, having to have surgeries and having all of these things that she would have to do to transform over the years, so that her cleft, she had a very wide open cleft lip and gum, and her nose wasn't attached and her gum wasn't attached, and it was a lot of surgeries. Today you would never know it. She had an amazing surgery. But even then I kept saying, why am I feeling so sad about the birth of my daughter? I mean, I know it's all of these surgeries, but that we have to look forward to, but we have to deal with them. But what I realized is that because it was loss of a dream and loss and pain for her, having to go through that, my pain in the sorrow of it. And so when you look at your life, you'll realize there are other things in your life that cause grief that wasn't just death. It was other things. Maybe it was the loss of a pet that you love so much it just hurts when they're gone. And those things they're very real and 100% grieving, and you survived. So look for those moments in your life where you can say, yeah, I did survive that. And what did I do then? So I remember that one day I just stopped dreading the tears, because I would try so hard to stuff them down and to be strong and not let people see me cry. And I realized that I could set time for tears, and it would make it not so horrible, because my fear was that if I cried, I wouldn't be able to stop, or I would cry at a time when I didn't want to cry. I would cry in the grocery store or at the bank or in front of my children. And not that it's okay to let your children know that that you're grieving, because they're grieving. And sometimes it's okay to sit down and have conversations with them. But if your tears and your sorrow is interrupting the quality of your life with those you love, it is helpful to take a look at things that you can do that might work to make it feel better. A good cry, honestly, that's why they call it a good cry, is one of the most beneficial things you can do. So what did I do? I made time for my good cry. I made time by journaling. I would set aside time every day in the afternoon, and I would go into the garden where I'd planted some roses in memory of Garrett, and I would sit on the bench and I would write in my journal. And by writing in your journal, you have an opportunity to look at what you're really and truly feeling, because sometimes you can just burst into tears and you know in essence what it's about. But when you have an opportunity to look at your thoughts and your emotions and your feelings by writing them down, it is a wonderful feeling. And there is proof that this is beneficial to healing. James Pennebaker from the University of Texas did a study of people who were grieving. And he said that the study proved that by journaling at least even 3 to 5 minutes a day after several weeks, it was beneficial to their healing. Now, I can tell you that this is true. because this is what I did. I set aside time to journal, and sometimes I would burst into tears while I was writing, because I was writing about my emotions and my feelings, and pages and pages, and I could hardly see through the tears. But guess what? That was my good cry. That was the cry I needed to shed those emotional tears, release the oxytocin and the endorphins that fuel you when you have a good cry, because tears have a chemical makeup that sometimes happy tears actually have a different chemical makeup than sad tears, I'm told. And if you allow that time, compartmentalize your feelings and say, okay, I am stuffing down my feelings, but at 4 o'clock today, I'm going to be journaling, and I'm going to have an opportunity to put all of those feelings into my journal. And so that was probably one of the most healing things I ever did. And especially when I was able to look back on that journal and see how far I had come, because I got to look back and say, oh, 3 weeks ago, I thought I would never get through that day when I had to join the kids at their Christmas pageant. And yet I did. And then you see moments and increments of healing that takes place just by documenting them. I promise you, there is proof that journaling works. And Melissa, you have a beautiful journal that you have on Modern Prairie, don't you?
Oh, we do. I mean, there are a number of them that you can choose from. I will say this about journaling, because we've talked about this, and Nicole knows this. I am a notoriously horrible journaler. My therapist, whom you know quite well, Sandra.
Yes, I do.
Marta, who we call Smarta, for 30 some odd years tried to get me to journal whenever things were getting really overwhelming in my life. And in all fairness, I say I don't journal well, but when things got really rough, I would. And I would see going back and looking at things. It was a path to healing for me, because I could see that those days later were much better than the days before, in my head and in my heart and in my emotional self. I did see that there was healing. So that was immensely helpful, even for a terrible non-journaler. And we do have these gorgeous, gorgeous journals available if you want to journal. If you want to use them, you can find them on the Modern Prairie website. They're kind of great. And the thing I love about them is they're small, so they're not intimidating. Like the first time I sat down to journal, someone bought me a journal. It was this big. And all I could think was, I don't have that much to say. What is this? Of course, I've written 4 books since then. But I love our little journals. And, if you fill one up, you can always get another one. I think they're really, really precious, and they're easy to keep with you. So if you are out or you're somewhere, you can just jot something down, which also is another thing to think about. Actually, as you journal, there's value in setting aside the time to sit down and write. It really is a luxury it's a gift to give yourself, but it's also great to be able to take a journal with you just to keep a note. Because you'll find later too that you're going to want to go back and sometimes remember even good stuff that you wrote down, right? Today I felt great. Today I was happy. Today so-and-so called, hadn't talked to him, her, they for eons. Fantastic. I mean, that's all that has to be there, but you'll look back on it and go, yeah, that was a good day. And there you are smiling.
Yes. That is so true. And those happy moments that you write in a journal, I remember writing, I laughed today, and I didn't hear the voice I thought I heard, because it was like, who is that laughing? It was a stranger's voice to me, because it had been so long since I had laughed. And I recorded that in my journal, and I remembered that so definitively, what that sounded like. It was almost like a foreign voice, because it was my laughter and I hadn't laughed in so long. So if you do, that's good advice, Melissa. If you do record those happy moments, those are the monikers of your healing. So, 2 emotions can live in the same body at the same time, and you can choose one or the other. And attempt to shift into the other. So you can feel happy and sad at the same time. And I would wake up after Garrett died, I would wake up and say, happy or sad, how was I feeling? I'd check in with my body. I'd check in with my emotions. And my youngest was only a year and a half when Garrett died. So I had to put myself in a position of being a mom who could pick him up with a smile on her face, because that's what I wanted him to see first thing in the morning. Did it feel real? Sometimes it was conflicted, but I had to shift it, and soon it became natural. If you just keep making those choices, if I can just be happy for 5 seconds and smile at my child, if I can be happy for 10 seconds, those increments of time get longer, because you do have the ability inside of you to make that choice for 5 seconds. Try it. And so I knew that the choice was mine. And I was allowed to tuck my feelings of sadness away for a while. And usually I'd tuck it away until I could sit down with my journal. You may not control all of the events that happen to you, but you can decide. Oh, Maya Angelou has this great quote. She says, you may not control all of the events that happen to you, but you can decide not to be reduced by them. And that was such a meaningful thing for me to read, because I realized I had a choice, I had a responsibility, and I was able to put my emotions on pause in order to smile at my son first thing in the morning. Now, approaching holidays and anniversaries of death, holidays, they're all particularly hard times, because you almost organically start to feel these feelings like, oh, it's almost a feeling of dread. It's approaching. I will remember the day. And it happens for me usually in December, sometime around the second week, because he died on December 19th. And so I start to feel, okay, what am I going to do December 19th? Am I going to be okay? And I start to have this feeling of dread, and it's very normal and natural response to loss. I don't want you to think there's anything weird or strange about you. You are experiencing a normal and natural reaction to loss. And that is that dreaded fear that you're going to be feeling that pain as intensely as the day you lost that person. And sometimes you do. And sometimes you don't, but you have the ability to shift it for 5 seconds at a time. Now, it used to be that I would always plan for that day. And now that day comes upon me, and sometimes I am just fine. It is, I don't even call my kids or talk about it. Sometimes they'll call me. We're very open with our conversations about it. But it's one of those things that if one of us needs to talk to each other, we'll call. And the day will go by and I'll realize, oh my gosh, December 19th just passed and I wasn't even aware. And, but what I want to urge you to do at first is to acknowledge what you're going through, because once you acknowledge it, you have an opportunity to honor it. And for me, that's there are 5 stages of grief, according to Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. And I even wrote in my book, Melissa may remember this, that I think there's a very real 6th step to grief. And that is to find the meaning and honoring that child in any way that I could. And the 6th step is resilience, the ability to bounce back and to turn that loss into something meaningful. And so I have some things that I want to share with you that I did, and also things that you could think about doing in your own holiday experience when it comes up. One of the things is instead of ignoring the loss, you make a big deal about it. You honor it. You maybe at Thanksgiving, you display a photograph of them right on the dining room table for everybody to see, or you set an empty seat at the table, or you have a moment of silence for the one that you loved, or you set aside time to share great stories, and you let people know that you're doing this, because you don't want people to be blindsided. If you have them for Thanksgiving, you say, this year I think I'm going to be honoring my son, and I want to be able to say a few words about him, and I'd love if everybody could just tell a short story. And you'd be surprised at how people love that, because a lot of times they're so afraid to talk about it for fear of reducing you to tears that they don't want to mention it. And I remember that was like the biggest quandary for me, because I would see people and I knew that they knew my son had died, but they wouldn't say a word about it. And later they would say something like, well, I just didn't want to remind you. And it's funny because you're not going to forget something like that. But I told you that, Melissa. I just
Yes.
didn't want to remind you that it happened. Well, they're just trying to help you feel better. You can't feel angry about it. People say the wrong things. I said the wrong things before I knew what this kind of loss was. Just embrace them for the fact that they are making an effort to do what they think is right and trying to help you feel better. So if you can set aside time to tell those stories, that relieves them of the pressure of not wanting to bring it up in case they're going to remind you or make you feel bad. Another thought is to donate goods or services or time in the name of a charity that they loved, something that they loved doing. And don't do something that doesn't bring you joy and satisfaction, because that just seems like too much of an effort. All of this should be things that bring you joy. And if there isn't, and it's not filling your cup, then you're not able to be present. So if you can just find those things that resonate with you. Create gifts in their honor, maybe something that they would have loved giving to someone. My son loved the rock group, the Grateful Dead. They were very popular. And I gave the gift of a mixtape of theirs to some friends that I had fun creating it, because I got to spend time. You remember mixtapes, now they're playlists, but I had fun going through and making these playlists for friends, because it made me feel like I was spending time with Garrett and being able to give a gift. So if you can think of things that, the paint by numbers, those are wonderful gifts because they actually look remarkable. And just little things that you can do. Bring someone some cookies, and say, oh, these were Garrett's favorite cookies, and I just thought of him today, and I thought of you because I wanted to give them to you. Little things like that make a huge difference in how you're feeling during the holidays. And now, one thing that we're going to do this year, and we have done for the last couple of years, my father passed away in 2018, and he was a larger than life father figure for me. He was an admiral in the Navy, and he was so much a part of my life. I idolized him, and his loss was very, very hard for me. And one thing that he did every Thanksgiving, we have family Thanksgivings every year. There are about 25 of us that come to my house every year. And Dad would always bring the most god-awful dish of scalloped oysters. It was a dish that his mother made, and they always smelled too bad, and he always overcooked them, and he was the only one who ever ate them. And anytime we had someone new come into the family, like my husband, Jim, he came into the family and he tried them and tried to act like he loved them. And you could tell that he was gagging along with the rest of us. But we made a joke about it. And so every year since Dad died, we've made scalloped oysters, but we've made a better version of them this year. Or last year we did. And we're going to do it again this year. So make their favorite dish. And as you're serving it, say, this was Dad's favorite dish. And hopefully it's a good one and not one that just smelled god awful. So.
We have one in our family too. It's
Oops, you froze. Hopefully we're going to find out what it is. Do, 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 do. There. Oh, you know what? We missed what it was, Melissa.
Oh, I'm so sorry. It's the your basic Campbell soup green bean casserole.
Oh,
I made
yes.
it one year when my mother's now deceased husband Warren was still alive, and he loved it. I mean, I literally was to dump the cans in and sprinkle with the crunchy onions, and that's it. And
Right.
he went crazy. And now every year I have to bring or send Warren's green beans. It's not even green bean casserole anymore. And I can't do it if I do it with fresh green beans and I make it from scratch and I make a roux and I go through the whole 9 yards. I get the note that no, but this is not Warren's casserole. We need Warren's green beans. And I have to do it with Campbell's soup and canned green beans. Like, that's my family.
I remember that recipe from my childhood, Campbell's soup. Yes.
Yes. And French's onions.
Yes. I want to just look at the time. Nicole, is it okay if we go a little bit over? Is it is it 5?
You're
We're
perfect, Sandy. Keep going.
Okay.
You're great.
Okay, good. All
I think
right.
we have the Zoom till 8:15. Am I? Yes.
did. We
Okay.
absolutely did.
Good, because I have lots more I want to share. Okay, so you might be feeling this time of year more vulnerable, and the memories will start flooding of all the holidays, and you might feel melancholy or wishing for a time that's past that can never be again. Vulnerability is something that we fear, but revealing it and sharing it with someone is bringing it to the light. And I know Brene Brown does a lot of work about exposing your vulnerability, because one of the things that I felt most vulnerable about was sharing the fear that I might lose another child. And I was so afraid of that fear. And I felt so vulnerable that I could potentially lose another child, that every time they went out the door, I had this, excuse me, magical thinking that if I said, be safe, that they would be okay. And so this sort of ritual made me feel like I was powerful. Well, it wasn't necessarily a good thing, because I became very obsessive about it. And in fact, if I forgot to say it, I would drive to the school and call through the schoolyard, be safe today, have fun. And I realized that at that point, I was not in control of my feelings, and I was upset about it, and I felt very vulnerable. And I knew that it was time to get help. I knew it was time to share my emotions and my feelings. I think I shared it with Melissa first, actually, that I would, in the middle of the night, organize. I had tons of books, because I have tons of books, and I'd organize in the middle of the night, 3 o'clock in the morning, my library of books, like the Dewey Decimal System or something. I just wanted them all looking perfect, and I'd get up in the middle of the night to do that. Well, that wasn't a healthy thing, but these kinds of things can happen. And I learned this in my grief recovery class then and course that I took, is that these are very real reactions where you don't feel in control, where you do things that are, maybe, thoughts of harm, or these are very real things that are very important to get help, medical help with. And what I did was I went to a therapist, and I was so grateful to be able to say, I am really embarrassed, but these are the feelings that I'm having, that I have to do these rituals to keep my children safe. And I wake up in the middle of the night and I have to organize books. And am I crazy? And it was the greatest thing to get the feedback from our SMARTA that no, you're not crazy. These things sometimes happen with grief. And so if you can think of someone you trust, I don't know if it's a clergy, a friend, a healthy sibling, a therapist. A therapist was the best option for me. And it worked to shift my fear out of that obsessive feeling and thinking. So as embarrassing as it was, I knew I needed to share it. And I shared about it in my book too. And a lot of people who have read my book connected about that part, because they said, I thought I was the only one. No, you're not the only one.
I do think that it's a natural reaction too, when we experience something that's upheaving, to want to control our environment. I also discussed this with Smarta a bunch because when things would swirl around me, whether it was grief or just too much, I would start organizing closets and cupboards in the pantry and the kitchen and reorganizing and purging and doing, because it is controlling your environment. The key though, that Sandy is saying, the key is to know when it's actually just controlling the environment or getting a little out of hand,
Mhm.
where you're waking up at 3 a.m. to rearrange your books
Right.
in alphabetical order and according to color and size. That's when
Right.
things start to get, and
True.
I think we know ourselves better than anyone. Whether you truly are in touch with yourself, you can feel if you're spiraling and if things are getting out of control. And like Sandy said, there's so many places to get help for stuff like that, whether it is the clergy or a friend, or even contacting a national organization like NAMI, or there's so many more resources now, because I think one of the things that one of the good things that came out of COVID is now we're really acutely aware of mental health, and the conversation's really shifted in the country, where it's still stigmatized to a certain extent, but we are able to discuss it more openly, and the resources, I think, for mental health issues are increasing. So just know that support's out there, and then you have your friends, you have your family circle, and hopefully you're surrounded by people who won't judge. But if that is something that you come up against, there are so many resources to reach out to.
Yeah, that's a great point. And especially there are now therapists online. And when I attended the Grief Recovery Institute, at that point, they didn't have online as the option. But now therapists, grief recovery workers, they are online now, and you can have access to them. And like Melissa said, there are organizations that it doesn't cost, and it is important to seek that outside help. So there's another option of things that happen as the holidays approach, and you have these overwhelming feelings of stress and grief. You worry more about the future. You start doing things. I know at this age, I am actually asking the unanswerable question, how many Thanksgivings and Christmases do I have left? And it's a questioning mortality, and it feels a bit like foreboding joy, because I'm rehearsing the end of my life. And yet I do not know when that's going to happen. And those are things that are important to bring yourself back to presence. Bring yourself back to present. And believe me, after spending 3 days with my grandchild and being the one that had to care for him solely, there is nothing that will bring you back to presence like a child, because you cannot take 1 minute away from thinking about that child when they're not even 2. And, but how do you do it if you don't have a child? Bringing yourself back to presence is important, and you can use tools like journaling, meditation or reflection, walks in nature. Thich Nhat Hanh, the Buddhist monk, he used to do walking meditations. And I try to do that on my trails that are out behind my housing development. We have nature trails, and I walk there and I try to just feel every step that I take and notice everything I see. And it's surprising the things that I never saw before when I was walking with my earphones and or making phone calls on my walks. And so if you can bring yourself back to presence by walks in nature, or here's like one of my favorite things is lighting a candle, which I lit a candle for us and Modern Prairie is going to have these amazing candles, because we went to the factory. Melissa and I went to the factory and watched them making each one of these things individually. And oh, is that one, Melissa? Oh, yes. They have a rose lavender scent. And are you there, Melissa? Uh-oh, we lost you for a second. Just the camera. We lost the camera. Anyway, Oh, there it is. Okay, there. Isn't it gorgeous? Gorgeous.
Smells so good too.
Yeah. Is that the rose lavender? Lost her. It's a little slow. Maybe a storm's approaching. So anyway, we'll wait for her to come. Did you come back, Melissa? No. Okay. So when you have these feelings of, I light a candle, I have a mug of tea, my B mug, and I sit down and I get my journal and I have a moment of reflection. And that brings me to the present by thinking about my breathing and thinking about the present, thinking about every sip I take. And then I try a short meditation. So if you're all agreeable, I want to do like a 2-minute reflection meditation, however you'd like to call it. If you would just lean into this with me and close your eyes and take a deep breath. And did you know that verbally sighing relaxes you more than if you just sigh silently? So if you take a deep breath, your microphone isn't on, mine is, you'll hear me sigh. Close your eyes, take a deep breath and sigh. And you can do that several times. And now use your imagination. Are you sitting by the fire and there's a Christmas tree? Are you listening to the logs crackle and spark? Are you walking in the woods, watching the leaves gently fall? Are you sitting in your kitchen with a fragrant cup of tea? You are present. And in this silent prayer, I want you to envision the holiday season for you this year. Picture a glorious family gathering, and you see smiles on people's faces. Imagine the music. Imagine the music as you're driving home from work on Christmas Eve. Envision you and your mate lovingly toasting in the new year with joy, expectation, and all is well. Sigh deeply. Envision this holiday season approaching as magically as you could possibly dream. Oprah said she could never have dreamed big enough to imagine her life as she is today because she wasn't capable when she was a child. She didn't have what it took to recognize that someday she would be one of the most powerful women on television and change lives, one of them mine, by watching her. Imagine that you are that powerful woman in your own life and dream as big as you want to dream. And I promise you, it's not as big as the dream could actually happen because you don't know yet. Life is still unfolding. And it's okay to want more. It's okay to be more. It's okay to love yourself more. Because you are enough. Imagine yourself with the biggest smile on your face and peace glowing from inside of you outward so that the world can see the moment you step in the door, you are light. Imagine yourself in front of a mirror, looking at yourself and say, I love you. Sometimes that's the hardest thing to do, to look ourselves in the eyes, to look right into the mirror and say, I love you. The first time I did it, I struggled with it. I averted my eyes. Look at yourself. Look at yourself in those beautiful eyes that are only yours and say, I love you. I am ready for whatever unfolds. Now take a deep breath and sigh. And that big sigh will comfort you and wake you up to the present moment that we are in now. I hope everybody had that big fat sigh. It really feels so good. So we are almost done, but I have a couple more things. First of all, if you signed up, you probably got this, which is several pages of looking at the holidays, past, present, and future. Now, in that, you have lots to think about. And these are journaling prompts that can be used in no particular order. But these are going to be tools that you can organize your thoughts with. And I want to read them to you. Nicole, can I share my screen? Let's see. I'm going to share my screen and pull this up for you.
You can.
Okay. I'm going to share my screen. And here we go. Okay. Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay. So this is looking at the holidays, and you can either print this out or just leave it on your desktop to refer to. And it's journaling prompts to help you find new ways of approaching the holiday season. I'll go over this quickly because this is yours to keep. But the first section is on remembering holidays past. And you'll see that there are important points for actually doing this, because this is going to help you understand that you are capable of surviving whatever you're faced with. You are capable of creating what you want this holiday season to be, with some structure and some thoughts to also other people. So in the memories of holiday past, I urge you to, as a child, what's the most magical memory you have? What did you feel? Feelings are important. Remember what you feel. Did you feel? Love, surprise, awe? Did you have a bad childhood memory of it? That can happen too. What's the most wonderful holiday experience you feel as an adult? Was it heartwarming, joyful, peaceful? And so if you look at all of these, they're about recalling the Christmas past, write about the stressors and triggers from your past. And when you write about the stressors and triggers, you'll have those written down so that you actually know what those are, and you can avoid doing them this year because you'll be aware. Once you're aware, you're never unaware. It's like no shifting back. So awareness is key. And that's why journaling is so important, because it brings you that level of awareness. What was the most uncomfortable gathering you experienced in the last 5 years? That's important to know too. And what circumstances are better for you this year than last? Are things better, worse? How do you feel? And the next section is on loss and grieving. And these are ideas for naming your greatest loss. Are you still struggling? What other losses have made you sad during the holidays? Are those triggers? Are they coming up? Can you write a letter in your journal to someone that you've lost? Picture them sitting there with you. It's an opportunity to let your feelings and tears flow as you're writing these. And you'll feel, as I wrote here, you'll feel like you've had a conversation with them. I've done this many times for my son, and I can tell you I always feel better after, and I may cry, but that's okay. That's the time for tears. And if you have unresolved issues with someone, write about it. All of these things in loss and grieving should be able to guide you in the direction of being aware. The next section is couples, families, and friends, because you'll have a lot of obligations. Writing these down and sharing them with your partner or your family or friends is important because you need to know what you're obligated to, what you want to do, and what you don't want to do. Christine conducted a really good class on boundaries, and saying no is a really important thing to learn. And if you didn't see that broadcast, I think it might be helpful to go back and revisit it, because there are ways of getting out of things you simply don't want to do. But it's always a negotiation when there are family members involved. And so I have a conversation with my husband. Now, my husband and I have been married 11 years now. He was not my first husband. My first husband died. And we look at that time as, how do we honor him? Because my kids always want to talk about him at Christmas time. Oh, remember the time when dad did this? And we tell funny stories, but I had to first make sure it was okay with my partner. Did he feel uncomfortable about talking about David? And was he okay with the kids bringing up those spontaneous conversations? And, you know, he's so wonderful. And of course, he even perpetuates them by saying, oh, tell us about the time David did that thing in the restaurant. You know, he'll bring it up so that they have to tell stories. And then it becomes wonderful. It's not that uncomfortable, don't speak about that thing. So also there may be some really special family members who need attention during the holidays, who may not be able to come to you, but you can go to them, or at least give them a call. You know, my mom is 96 and a half. And I think it's funny because she always tells that half. And, you know, when you're a child, you say, oh, I'm 4 and a half, I'm 5 and a half. And then you get to, you know, 30 and you say, oh, I'm 30. Or, you know, you will never add on that half a year. But then once she hit 90, she always adds on the half. So call those family members, take them cookies, the cookies that you're going to make with a friend. And on creating new holiday joy, you can create a list highlighting the things you most look forward to during the holiday season. Envision how you'd like to create those. And recognize, here's something really important, recognize that situational stress can be caused by having too many things to do. It's not emotional stress, it's situational stress, and there is a difference. So if you have situational stress like overwhelm at shopping or getting gifts or picking up the kids, then write down those things and see how you can alleviate those, because some of them can be alleviated, especially today when you can have groceries delivered or assign a dish to someone else, and maybe they'll bring the green bean casserole with mushroom soup, but you know, at least there's a meal up on the table from someone else, right? So, and recognize if you have recurring issues with certain people and you know certain people are going to start fights, well, how do you avert those? That takes careful planning. And we had that situation in our family for a little bit, not anymore. And we had to like change the seating. And so one year, instead of, it always ended up that those two people were together. Well, guess what I did? I made place cards. So it worked much better. And if you can do that, and also learn the art of changing the subject. If somebody gets into a thing with you, learn the art of, oh, that's great, but did you taste the green bean casserole? Try doing something like that, because you'll want to avert those conversations. And I actually took a course on communication, which was very helpful with that. And I urge anybody who has that opportunity to do it. Gift giving can be super stressful. And if you recall what was your favorite gift and why did it matter so much, you may find out that your favorite gift was actually something quite simple that you could give to someone else. What was the best gift you ever gave to someone? Start writing a list of your gift obligations and ways to solve those obligations by, things don't always have to be expensive. Honestly, I made cookies last year, and that was for me one of my greatest, most joyful gifts, because I got to send out those cookies, and boy, they were killer. And I got to send out those cookies, and I was so proud of them because I bought boxes online and labels, and I made them look all fancy. And you know what? They weren't that much money, and it's a great way to go. And also shopping online makes it easier. You don't have to go to the malls anymore. You can shop online and make it easier for you. Less stress, less stress, less stress. That's what I'm going for. And also thinking of the volunteer opportunities that you might want to do. It might be in person or it might be a check. Don't stress yourself out. Might be a pie for the neighbor next door that you're going to make with Cheryl, right? So all of those things make it much easier and much more joyful. And then self-care. We're going to finish with self-care. Journaling is one of the best ways to organize your thoughts. Now, I use my journal not only for reflections, but for lists. So all of these things I have in my journal. Like I have my grocery list, I have my, and then I just take a picture of it and take it to the grocery store. I have my gift lists, all of those things I have in my journal so that I don't have tons of notebooks on my desk. I have my journal. The other thing is write down the things that make you feel good, like baths or reading poetry or walking in the woods or whatever makes you feel good, listening to music. Do that. When you start to get stressed, get present, do a meditation, a reflection, sigh, and do that. So sleep is the last one, most important thing you can get. Sleep, eating well. And I want to remind you in this document says also that the holidays are bittersweet for everyone. Everyone feels ambiguous feelings during the holidays. Don't feel you're alone because it's a normal and natural reaction to the holidays approaching. So I just want to finish up with the thought that I am so privileged to be here and be able to talk to you about all of these things. As I said, there is no solving grief and loss, but there are ways to shift it. And my holiday wish for you is to be surrounded by love and treasure every single day as a woman. You're a woman of strength and beauty. You've achieved a lot arriving at this age. And to be a woman who commits to herself lovingly and fully and extending that beautiful love to everyone else. We are so blessed. And thank you, Melissa. Thank you, Nicole, for this wonderful opportunity. And I appreciate all of you on this broadcast. You have made my night, my day, my week, because I feel like so full being able to give to you.
This is why this is my best friend, y'all. There's no secret here. This is not surprising. Here's what I got so much out of this, but here's the one thing I'm taking away with me more than anything is that we're all here and I'm looking at all of your faces and sharing all of this with you, and I feel better. And I'm so grateful, Sandy, that you were able to do this with us. Nicole, Sandy also has a website. Will we have a link to that on our site so people can go to Sandy or Sandy and to Sandy's books and things?
Yes, we will put that up on the site, on our events page, post this. We'll also put a link to the grief resources we had after our first session. So we'll have that there as well. And of course, we've got our Facebook group as well around grief, loss, and healing within the official Modern Prairie page, so that we can connect and communicate together as we get through this. I think it's really important, like you said, Melissa, about community we're building and seeing everyone here. It will extend beyond this call, of course, and that's what we're really trying to do. So we'll have those resources for sure.
And don't forget to download your PDF of journal prompts. It was sent to you in an email, right, Nicole? Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, that's a big one. Now, I do want to say one thing. I'm gonna, because it's always I'm always one to lighten a mood. When Sandy, when you shared your screen with us, I, of course, as your best friend, was reading everything around the document. I was reading all of the things on your desktop. And I think at some point we all need the gorgonzola salad dressing recipe.
Oh, yeah.
I've had it, and I have to tell you, I don't have that recipe, I think, unless it's in the book you made for me.
No, it's not in that book, but I did make up this dressing. I did make it up. So I ran to my computer and typed it in so I wouldn't forget it. It's super simple. I'll send it.
Yeah, well, I think it's something we should probably have. So maybe if you send it to
Okay.
Nicole, if we could post that, because I was looking at it and thinking, I think this is something we all need to have around the holidays. So we can escape into the pantry by ourselves away from all the family and have a salad with gorgonzola dressing for a minute.
Wonderful.
I want to thank everybody so much for being here and being a part of our incredible community. I loved having a chance to message with everybody. I'm madly in love with Danny. I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. Your
Me
messages
too.
have moved me beyond. And I'm so sorry you're sick today, but I'm so glad you pushed and came to support Sandy. And it's a joy to meet you. It's a joy to see you all. I hope to see you doing pie, because I'm not ready to say goodbye to everybody before the holidays. I can't wait to see as many of your fantastic faces as I can. And again, thank you so much for supporting Modern Prairie. It means the world to myself, to me, and to Nicole. But I think even more than just supporting the website and what we're doing there, it really, I feel like I have a bunch of new friends, and that's a really big deal. There's nothing I find more maybe vital than knowing we're not alone in anything ever. And I feel like we have our own wonderful support group of incredibly brilliant, funny, talented, gorgeous, giving, extraordinary women. And I'm just so grateful to all of you, especially as we come up. That's the thing that gets me at the holiday time, is I start to realize also how grateful I am for all of these gifts and the abundance of gifts in my life. And you're all a part of that. And I thank you so much for everything. And I look forward to whatever comes next and next year, and all of the surprises we have in store, and all of the fun we're going to have continuing forward with this incredible adventure that I will forever be grateful to Nicole for figuring out how to make it happen. So I thank you all so much, and come make pie crust next week, or come watch me try.
Wonderful. You're going to do it this time.
I think so. I think
Yeah.
so. It's got to happen. I mean, I think the 75th time is probably the charm.
I think so. I'm counting on it.
Wait, something just passed by. We grieve, we live, we experience sorrow, we experience joy. We're not alone.
Beautiful. That's the perfect way to end.
Yep.
Thank you.
exactly.
Thank you for that.
Everybody take care of yourselves, love yourselves, be good and kind to yourselves, and we'll see you soon.
Good night.